Today I'm sharing a segment from my film Death Park, which I'm recutting because it was too long. Why was it too long? Well, I was trying to answer the inevitable questions that'll come up when an audience is watching it. They'll say, how can this be? How can this be taking place inside of a national seashore? How can ranchers violate their leases and get away with it? How can a National Park Service staff be this incompetent and negligent? How can anyone allow this sort of suffering of the wildlife? It's too much to cover, at least to fully explain it. This segment, which will be in a different film, not one about the elk, talks specifically about legislation and the promise.
Before I roll that clip, here's a reminder that the original legislation dates back to 1962. A lot of people will refer to the amended legislation because that's the legislation that ranchers, using their newfound money and power, influenced lobbyists to get the legislation amended in '78.
You know, they'll say something along the lines of, oh, well, the legislation says it has to be this way. Dave Press, even in one of the articles in 2015 following that huge die-off, says, you know, the legislation specifically says that ranching has to stay in the seashore. No, it does not say that. That's misleading the public. Pro-rancher lobbying got the legislation amended in their favor, but even after that, it still doesn't say ranching is supposed to stay in the seashore. You'll also hear the Park Service talk about being directed to pursue 20-year leases from Secretary of the Interior Salazer, who just happened to be a cattleman. They say this as if these are marching orders, that there's no wiggle room whatsoever.
You'll often hear the ranching community refer to this as the promise, but even they know it's nothing more than a consideration. The scoping letter from the Ranching Association says they know it's a consideration. And if one secretary can recommend one direction, that means another secretary can recommend another direction. And no matter which direction that is, this means that it wasn't in the original intent, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. And in addition to all of that, the Park Service still has regional discretion.
I mean, imagine if an oil tycoon became the Secretary of the Interior and said, you're going to drill in Point Reyes National Seashore. Does that mean that they have no choice but to do that? If someone said, we're going to pave Point Reyes National Seashore from top to bottom, do they have to do that? If they wanted to start logging in Point Reyes National Seashore, do they have no choice in the matter? As Judd Howell pointed out to me, there is still a legal aspect to this. Even if you wanted to consider these orders, it still has to be legal. Something of this scale is subject to an environmental impact study. An environmental impact study that Jared Huffman, the servant of the ranchers, tried to avoid completely. Is that balance? Is that balance when your congressman tries to avoid an environmental impact study for the sake of private businesses operating in the seashore? And he wanted to avoid it for good reason. The environmental impact study did take place, and it was absolutely condemning of the effects of ranching. Well, guess what? The Park Service just ignored those results. Just ignored them and continued with the preferred alternative that was 100% in favor of ranching.
Okay, that's all I'm going to share from the film today, but there's a lot of information in there, and it undoes a huge lie that is perpetuated by the ranching community. And the ranching community is at it again, using their millions of dollars in political influence to try to undo the small bit of progress that has recently been achieved in Point Reyes National Seashore. And they're doing it once again by spreading lies. Even if you like ranching, are you okay with the spread of lies in order to get what you want? And when I say get what you want, they just want more money. The rich keep getting richer at the expense of the rest of us.